Hi everybody, Michelle McClunan here, and I'm bringing you another update on the full moon, which is happening on Monday or very early in the morning on Tuesday, the 21st, the 20th, 21st of September, and we're already feeling the energies. I'm doing this on Saturday, the 18th, and I'm definitely feeling the energies of this full moon. So we have a lot going on this full moon, but the most important thing is obviously to talk about the actual lunation or the full moon, and then I'll kind of explain the energies around that relate to it and what's coming up for me energetically and intuitively that I can share with you. So the full moon is in the sign of Pisces, which is also obviously means that the moon is opposite the sun in Virgo. So full moon's always opposite the sun, and it's always a culmination of the lunar cycle, okay? This one really is a culmination simply because the moon is at the 28th degree, which is very close to the last degree of Pisces, and the last degree of any sign is known as the anaretic degree. The anaretic degree is a very powerful kind of almost turning point, almost like a tipping point. It's a very powerful release point, as I see it, this full moon. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. The zodiac starts with Aries and it moves all the way around to Pisces. So Pisces being the last sign, and this moon is at the very, very final degree, or very close to the very final degree of the last sign. So it means that there's definitely a sense of release and letting go. And that's really kind of the theme for this full moon. And I just want to kind of drill down into the energies a bit, because the moon is also in a close connection, or what we call in astrology a conjunction, to the planet Neptune. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. So what that does is it infuses anything that Neptune infuses anything that it's touching with that energy. So what it does is, because it's opposite, because it's right next to the moon, it means that it's opposite the sun, and it's also opposite Mars, which are two masculine planets. So what's happening is the masculine energy out there is being kind of softened in a sense. It might be a little bit foggy. And if you look at masculine energy and what masculine energy represents, masculine energy is the outgoing, the what's next, the planning, the strategies, the shining your light out in a powerful way. That's kind of diffused. So I see Pisces and Neptune energetically, when it interacts with the sun, which is what it's doing, and the moon, it's almost like the sun is underneath the sea. So when you're underwater, or you see those underwater pictures of the sun shining through the water, it's not direct. You can actually look at the sun. You can look at it straight because the light is diffused. It's softened. So the light of the masculine is softened at this full moon. And the moon and Neptune are pulling us kind of to balance the masculine and the feminine. And it's a very powerful theme also because the day after the full moon, we have the equinox, which is in the southern hemisphere, it's the spring equinox, and in the northern hemisphere, it's the autumn equinox. And equinoxes are always a time where day and night are balanced, where they're the same length. It's a balance point. It's a point to release and move into a new energetic cycle. And you could kind of see the balance between day and night as also the balance between dark and light, between our light and our shadow, the balance between masculine and feminine. It's also a time where we're actually able to access higher levels of consciousness and awareness. If you look at what's going to be happening straight after this full moon, the sun, because the sun's at the very final degree of Virgo, the sun will be moving into Libra. What is Libra? Libra is the sign that represents balance, peace, harmony. It also represents relationships. Now, this full moon, we have, in addition to the full moon, which I'm going to come back to, we also have the planet Venus, which is in a square to Saturn and an opposition to Uranus. And I've been talking about the Saturn-Uranus square all year because that's our main theme for the year, which is about liberation versus contraction and restriction, freedom versus rules, the old versus the new. So that's a theme that we're all working on some level this year anyway. And this full moon brings Venus into the equation, and Venus is the planet of relationship. So we might find around this full moon that our relationships can feel a little bit challenged. There can be a sense of missing each other. There can be a sense of communication being a bit blocked, or there can be a sense of feeling like the relationship's kind of a bit mundane, or it's just same old, same old, same old. At the same time wanting a kind of a sense of excitement and the new, because it's the old and the new actually interacting with Venus, which is relationships. And obviously the first relationship we have is with ourselves. So it's to just look at our relationships, look at how we are judging, whether we're separating ourselves from other people because of different opinions, whether we are isolating ourselves, whether we're cutting contact with people, looking at our layers and our levels of tolerance towards ourselves and others, looking at where our judgments are towards ourselves and others as well, and looking at the common denominators rather than what separates us. So looking at what are the things in our relationships that bring us together. Because there are always going to be things that actually pull us apart. There are always going to be differences of opinion. And this has never been so true as it is right now on our planet. I mean, I know families that are breaking up. I know relationships that are breaking up because people have different viewpoints and are making very different decisions. So I see this as very much a time that we're moving through and moving into where we're having to, or where we're being urged to actually look at peace, at what is peace, and how can we actually connect with the energy of peace. Which brings me back to the full moon. So if you look at the full moon, as I said, is in Pisces, opposite the sun, which is in Virgo. Virgo, which is the end bit of Virgo, this is all about discernment. It's all about separating the wheat from the chaff. It's about seeing what works, what doesn't work, what's right, what's wrong, what's black, what's white. It's a very discerning, very pragmatic, very practical energy, which is great. It's very mind-oriented in terms of what's the decision I'm going to take. On the shadow side of Virgo, it can be a bit skeptical. You know, I'll only believe that if I have proof. Show me the data, show me the proof. And it's very much about kind of head knowledge as well. There's also an element to Virgo which is about speaking, about communicating, because Virgo is ruled by the planet Mercury, which is the planet of communication. So when you look at the combination of Virgo and Pisces, they're so different. Pisces is about release, surrender, being at one. Virgo is about putting things in boxes and putting strategies in place. Pisces is about letting it all go and surrendering to a greater power. So how does that play out? Well, first of all, the energy of Pisces, just on its own, never mind the fact that the moon's actually right next to Neptune, which is its ruler, is very, very sensitive. It's the most sensitive sign of the zodiac. It's the sign when we have the sun moving through Pisces or the moon moving through Pisces or a full moon in Pisces, we're going to feel things from the collective, from the oneness, more than at any other time. So you might be feeling stuff coming up for you, which might or might not be connected with you. You might be feeling into the collective, what the collective is feeling. There's a lot of confusion around. So the information's coming in. We've got Virgo giving us information, and we've got Pisces, which is kind of fogifying that information. It's not clear. You hear one thing and then you hear something else, which is the complete opposite. So that's leading to a lot of overwhelm and a lot of confusion, a lot of a sense of being cluttered and kind of sometimes deluded, deceived. And the other thing in terms of what it's bringing up for people that I'm seeing, and I'm seeing it all over the place, is grief. And it's not just grief when we lose somebody. Grief's usually associated with when we lose somebody, when we lose a person that's dear to us. And yes, that's the hardest grief that we need to deal with. And it's the grief that is often the hardest one to work through. But I think that we are feeling grief on a collective level. It's also about grief of loss of freedom, loss of, in many cases, loss of future, loss of vision, loss of dreams. Many people have lost people, obviously. Many people have lost belongings, lost money, lost jobs over the last couple of years. So there's a kind of a collective grief going on, which I feel like I'm tapping into on some level. Obviously that, you're not going to tap into grief on the collective level unless there's grief inside you. And grief is not a negative, it's just a feeling. So for me, this full moon is saying, feel the feelings that come up. Don't get attached to them. Don't, try and avoid putting stories onto the feelings. Because as soon as we put the story, that's taking us out of the pure feeling, the pure emotion. So what it does is it yanks us out of the emotion and we go off on a tangent about the story. This is about actually feeling it and allowing that feeling to work through you, to flow through you. Pisces is mutable water. It's allowing feeling and emotion to flow through you. And you might be feeling more of that at this time. And this is where I think that there's another element to this, where we actually look at the flip side of Neptune and we look at the flip side of Pisces. And I found came across something last night which really resonated with me and which kind of really helps me to explain what I want to explain on the flip side. And it's written by Tara Brach. I don't know if you've come across her, but she's an incredible teacher. And she says here, in the Lakota or Sioux tradition, a person who is grieving is considered most awakened, most holy. There's a sense that when someone is struck by the sudden lightning of loss, he or she stands on the threshold of the spirit world. The prayers of those who grieve are considered especially strong, and it's proper to ask them for their help. You might recall what it's like to be with someone who has grieved or is grieving deeply. The person has no layer of protection, nothing left to defend. The mystery is looking out through that person's eyes. For the time being, he or she has accepted the reality of loss and has stopped clinging to the past or grasping at the future. In the groundless openness of sorrow, there is a wholeness of presence and a deep natural wisdom. That's the one that struck me. So I'm going to say it again. In the groundless openness of sorrow, there is a wholeness of presence and a deep natural wisdom. So that's the other side of this. And that's the other side of what we're all moving through. Is that somehow when we're squeezed, when there's loss, when there is no future that we know of, that we can actually identify, when there are no plans that we can latch onto and make for definite, it pulls us into presence. And it pulls us, as it pulls us into presence, into beingness, it pulls us closer to spirit. And that's the upside of Neptune and Pisces, is we are all connected. We are never not connected. And this that's going on our planet, where it can be very divisory and it can pull people apart, it can even feel like it's pulling us apart. If we actually surrender and we allow and we accept what's going on, it can actually pull us closer to who we really are, without all of those thoughts and all of those concepts and all of those roles and all of our future desires, wants, judgments about the past, anxieties about the future, when we're exhausted and we surrender all of that, there's a coming together, there's a closeness, there's a oneness. And it can be felt just in a moment of, okay, I just let go. I just surrender to this, whatever this is for you, with no judgment. So that's really what I'm seeing happening right now. This is the balance point. It's a point where we're being tolerant, we're being called on to be tolerant, to connect to our inner peace as the sun starts to move into Libra, into balancing the masculine and the feminine, balancing the dark and the light, which means it's okay if you have a shadow. It's okay if you feel grief. It's okay if you feel sad. It's okay if you feel happy and joyful. It's all okay. It's all supposed to be happening. We can only transform if we allow this all to move through us. And we are transforming. We're moving into higher levels of consciousness. I do believe that. And I do believe that the light will win. And I do believe this is a spiritual war of sorts, where we've been called on to deepen our root, deepen our connection. Do more that connects you. So whether that's sitting outside, just watching the little birds, watching a plant, sipping your tea, whether it's going and giving someone a hug, whether it's making some music, listening to some music, allowing music to work through you, move through you, it's so healing. And this is a month of healing, of clearing and healing. Making art, very powerful right now. If you've never tried making a mandala or even coloring in one, give it a bash. I'm going to do that later today to honor this energy. When the doingness is unclear and the beingness is all there is really at the end of the day, this is all we have, this moment. We don't have anything else. Everything else is an illusion. So step away from the noise and connect with your inner compass. If you're in a state of unknowing and confusion about what to do, about decisions that you need to take, connect with your inner knowing. It does lie there. It does lie in our inner knowing. Up here, we're dropping down from here to here. It can sometimes mean turning off social media, turning off your phone, connecting in a deeper place for your answers. And then just finally, this one's also about forgiveness, letting go. Whatever those resentments are, whatever those blocks are, whoever you think's betrayed you or let you down or abused you, see if you can just let go of that, because as long as you hold on, almost see it like there's two hooks. One hook's in the person and one hook's in you. And as long as you're holding on to that betrayal, that hurt, that resentment, you're on the other end of the hook. So this is a time to release as well. And if you haven't come across the Ho'oponopono, it's a very, very powerful process that you can do when you feel that you need to forgive. And forgiveness normally starts with ourselves. So don't forget to include yourself in that process. So I wish you a beautiful, beautiful full moon. It's a gentle one. Allow the feelings to come, allow them to go, allow them to move through you. It's not wrong to feel what you're feeling. It's part of the human experience to come and feel our feelings. A lot of the time we try to rationalize them away, and that in turn affects our relationships with ourselves and others. because you can't be authentic. And relationships is going to be the next thing that we look at. Mercury retrograde. Mercury is turning retrograde on the 26th of September, and Mercury is the planet of communication. It'll be retrograde until the 19th of October. So that's a time where we'll be reassessing. And Mercury is moving through Libra, which is about relationships, it's about peace, it's about balance, it's about harmony. Yeah. Libra's about, if you know the song Imagine that John Lennon wrote all those years ago, that's Libra. Imagine a world where there are no boundaries, there are no borders. There's no good, there's no bad, there's no division. We're living in peace and harmony. That's the new earth. And I do believe that that's what's being birthed. But we're still in the stages of the deconstruction of the old, so that that can be rebirthed. And in the process, we need to be compassionate to ourselves and others. We're all just doing the best we can. And is there anything else? Yeah, if you like this, please share it or subscribe if you haven't subscribed. So lots of love. You're welcome to join our Inner Space journey, which is a monthly journey. It's a really nice community that we have. And in October, we're going to be looking at relationships and how that's playing out, balancing relationships, balancing the relationship we have with ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our homes, everything. Relationship, we're in relationship all the time. I'm available for readings. If you need to get hold of me, I've got a few week delay. So if you do want a reading, just reach out and we can schedule it for a few weeks' time. And we also have our Sunday night satsang, which is a get-together where we get together on Facebook Live at 7:30 to 8:30. And this week we'll be talking about decluttering the mind, and we'll be doing a full moon meditation as well to usher in the full moon. So join us. You can find that at Journeys of Awakening. I'll put the link below the video. But please join us there. It's free, and it's also a beautiful community that we have growing there. So please join us there. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a beautiful weekend if you're watching this over the weekend. And if you're watching it at full moon, have a beautiful full moon.